Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab.
Hello.
Today's deep dive. Well, it's into a fantastic stack of material we've got here. It's a collection of high-level English vocabulary. And these are words that are absolutely crucial if you want to elevate your understanding of deep, complex ideas, historical, philosophical ones.
So much more than just a list of definitions, isn't it? It's really a key to accessing the deeper layers of cultural meaning that are just embedded in Western thought, in literature, and in all those high-level intellectual debates.
Right.
We're focusing on C2 level vocabulary and specifically terms that are rooted in religion. But, and this is the important part, their usage extends so profoundly into the secular world.
Okay, so that's really the mission here, though.
I think so.
We're not just here to define these terms. I mean, you can find that in any dictionary.
Of course.
We want to dive into their cultural nuance, their historical weight, and I think most importantly, their metaphorical applications.
Yes, that's the real test.
That ability to take a specialized word and use it accurately and impactfully in a brand new context, that's the true marker of C2 mastery.
Yeah, absolutely.
For instance, knowing how to use a word like, say, heresy to describe a controversial business strategy, not just a theological deviation.
And the importance of this specific lexicon, I mean, it really can't be overstated. When we look at human history, religion stands out as one of the most powerful and persistent forces. It's shaped everything.
Culture, art, law,
politics, everything. And even if you live in a society that is completely secularized now, these ancient concepts, they continue to profoundly influence our language, our moral structures, traditions, worldviews.
So it's like a shortcut.
It really is. Yeah. Understanding this vocabulary is a shortcut to being well-informed about global discourse and high-level intellectual conversation.
So we're not just learning words, we're unlocking centuries of context and philosophical struggle. Let's just jump straight into our first cluster of concepts then.
Sounds good.
We're going to focus on practices, devotion, and institutional life, the specific actions and structures of belief.
That's a great starting point. It focuses on the human element, how individuals and small groups express their faith or their dedication.
Okay. We'll begin with spiritual observance and devotion. The first term on our list is visual. Now, the core meaning seems pretty straightforward. It's a spiritual observance involving staying awake, praying, or meditating, and it's typically held before a holy day or some important event. It implies a kind of readiness.
It does. Historically, a vigil was a practice of preparation, often held right through the night. You can think of the night before Christmas or Easter, that period of anticipation, reflection, and dedication before the main event.
Right.
What's so fascinating is how the word itself carries the weight of that dedication, that remembrance, or that intense preparation. It implies a conscious choice to sacrifice comfort, maybe rest, for a higher purpose.
So not just religious then. I'm thinking like a knight keeping a vigil before a ceremony.
Exactly. Dedicating himself to a code of honor. It's the same principle.
But the C2 application is where we really see the power of this word in modern English because the term is so beautifully flexible in its secular adaptation. We see it used to describe civic or humanitarian acts all the time.
That's the essential dual usage. The word maintains its core meaning of dedicated, watchful waiting during a critical time. But the context shifts from the sacred to the civic or the humanitarian. Our research showed examples of a community keeping a silent vigil outside a hospital while waiting for critical news.
Or citizens holding a candlelight vigil for victims after a tragedy. Or a political shooting, something like that.
Precisely. In that modern context, you're observing a vigil not for a divine entity, but for remembrance, for support, or for hope.
It's an act of collective devotion to human suffering or solidarity. It conveys a depth of feeling and commitment that just saying a gathering wouldn't capture at all.
No. The sacrifice of time, the solemn atmosphere, all that historical weight comes right through with the word. The sense of dedicated watchfulness is the thread that connects the two uses, making it a very high-level choice of word.
Okay, moving on to a term that's deeply rooted in a more personal, repeatable practice. We have rosary.
Ah, yes.
This is the classic example of prayer beads used primarily in Catholic worship, specifically for reciting a cycle of prayers.
The rosary is the perfect symbol of deep, structured, personal devotion. It's a physical tool, you see, used to impose rhythm and focus on prayer. It ensures that meditation and supplication are ordered and routine.
So when you see it in literature,
Well, its presence in literature immediately signals a specific structured form of spirituality. It's often associated with tradition or sometimes with a character's desperate, tactile clinging to faith during a crisis.
it provides that physical anchor for what is, I guess, an abstract spiritual process.
That's it.
So if a writer mentions a character holding a rosary, you instantly know a great deal about their internal state and cultural background without needing pages of exposition.
Yes. It's shorthand for a particular kind of spirituality. The power is in the visual and the historical continuity it represents.
Next, we explore consecration. The core meaning is the act of declaring something sacred or dedicated permanently to divine use.
And this is a formal, usually grand, and most importantly, an irreversible declaration. We see it in physical settings, like when a major cathedral is dedicated after its construction. It is consecrated. It's transformed from a mere building into a sacred space.
And that dedication is permanent.
It is.
And what makes this C2 material is how strongly that permanence and dedication transfers to the metaphorical context.
Yes.
We see how marriage is often seen as a consecration of love in many cultures.
That analogy is immensely powerful. It takes the idea of dedicating a physical space to an eternal purpose and applies it to dedicating a relationship to a higher, serious commitment.
Yeah.
It elevates the event far beyond a simple legal contract.
So it suggests that the relationship or even a professional life has been set apart, made holy or supremely important.
Yes. A monk's final vows, for example, are a consecration of their life to service. It implies a solemnity and seriousness of intent that really few other words can match.
So if you say a person consecrated their life to art, you're saying they treat art as a sacred mission.
Precisely.
Let's pivot now from individual actions and formal dedication to the concept of spiritual withdrawal. Let's look at hermitage and hermit.
Grouping these terms is fundamentally helpful because they describe a complete spiritual system that's centered on solitude and simplicity.
Right.
The hermitage is the physical place, a location chosen for its absolute separation. It's often high up, remote, or austere, like a simple cave in the forest.
So it represents a deliberate physical withdrawal from society, driven by the desire for deeper spiritual focus, contemplation, and purity, away from the corruption or distractions of the world.
And the hermit is the person who commits to that solitude and often extreme simplicity.
The C2 value here, again, has to lie in the adaptation, right?
Once again, yes. While few people today are physically moving to a mountain hermitage, the concept of the hermit has become such a powerful social metaphor.
Right. We might describe someone who retreats entirely from public life or maybe digital communication after a significant event. We'd say they've become a social hermit.
Or that they're living in a digital hermitage. It perfectly illustrates C2 mastery taking a highly specialized religious term tied to a physical location and applying it accurately to a psychological state or a social phenomenon.
The word conveys not just isolation, but deliberate isolation.
Yes.
For the purpose of intense focus or recovery.
And that element of deliberateness is absolutely key. It's not just being alone. It's choosing a path of austerity.
Following that concept of withdrawal, we can move into institutional leadership roles with abbot and abbess.
These are, respectively, the male head of a monastery and the female head of a convent. And these roles are critical because they represent the structure and authority needed to sustain a disciplined communal life over centuries.
We are talking about figures of profound authority, wisdom, and responsibility here. They aren't just the spiritual guides.
No, not at all.
They're the chief executives of often complex, self-sufficient, and powerful institutions.
Their roles are managerial, financial, and disciplinary, just as much as they are spiritual. The abbot guides the monk's daily life, oversees their spiritual development, and manages the institution's affairs, which historically could include vast land holdings and political influence.
And the abbess performs the same vital function for the community of nuns.
The very same. So when we use this language, referring to someone as having the authority of an abbot, we are implying a long-standing, respected, deeply spiritual, and fundamentally authoritative type of governance.
It's an archetype of calm, considered power.
It is.
So, to summarize this foundational section, we've covered words that describe individual acts of sustained dedication.
Like vigil and rosary.
Formal dedication with consecration. Spiritual withdrawal with hermitage and hermit.
And structured hierarchical leadership with abbot and abbess.
It built a really clear framework for understanding the institutional and personal aspects of faith.
A very solid base.
Okay, now that we've established the structure and practice of belief, let's turn to Section 2, Authority, Doctrine, and Clarity. This addresses how belief systems are organized, defined, and taught, a process that is absolutely critical for understanding academic critique in any field, whether you're discussing legal precedent or film history.
This is where we move from practice to principle. It's about defining what is officially accepted, what is taught, and what is commanded. And we begin with a very powerful and philosophically loaded word, canon.
The core religious meaning is a recognized official collection of authoritative texts or rules. For instance, the Bible canon differs slightly among various Christian traditions because of historical debates over which books were officially sanctioned.
Right. It's the established official list.
So the philosophical weight of canon is?
Yep.
It's immense.
It is, because its function is fundamentally one of inclusion and exclusion. It defines what is considered worthy, authentic, or divinely inspired, and what is, by extension, peripheral or non-essential.
And if you want to use this word at a C2 level,
you have to understand its powerful application outside the religious sphere, where it operates as the ultimate arbiter of cultural value.
This is where the analysis gets really nuanced, isn't it? Thinking about the arts and academics, our research points to some excellent examples. Bach's works, for instance.
Yes, they belong to the classical music canon.
Meaning they are the standard by which all other classical music is judged.
Exactly. Or similarly, early novels written by a famous author might not be considered part of their literary canon if they don't meet the standard of their mature, recognized work.
So in these secular uses, the canon still functions as this invisible gatekeeper.
It does. It signals the collection of works that must be studied, revered, and used as a benchmark for excellence and authenticity. To be excluded from the canon is to risk being forgotten by history or marginalized in academic study.
And the constant debates over the Western canon.
Those are intellectual wars. They're fought over whose stories and ideas matter most. It's a battle over cultural authority itself.
It's fascinating how a word that initially defined holy texts now defines which pop albums or films are deemed eternal masterpieces.
It carries that incredible weight of unquestioned authority.
It really does. Next, we look at how that canon, once it's established, is transmitted and taught across generations. Let's talk about catechism.
Right.
A catechism is a religious manual, often presented in a highly structured question and answer format. It's used specifically for teaching and instilling faith principles, especially to children preparing for confirmation.
It's far more than just a book, though. It is a rigid, systematic pedagogical structure. It's designed explicitly for shaping belief and moral understanding. That Q&A format ensures rote learning and precise adherence to established doctrine.
So it leaves very little room for interpretation or individual inquiry.
Very little.
Our analysis provides a beautiful contrast here. A teacher explaining morality through complex stories and dilemmas, rather than strict catechism.
And that contrast immediately illustrates the tension between rigid, formalized instruction and more fluid, narrative-based teaching that encourages critical thinking.
That tension must be central to its academic relevance.
Oh, absolutely. When scholars discuss catechism, they are often referring to that rigid, systematic process of instilling doctrine, regardless of whether the subject is theology, corporate compliance, or political ideology.
So you might say a new employee was put through the catechism of company culture.
You would. It implies relentless, detailed, and non-negotiable instruction.
Okay, moving from instruction to divine imperatives, we have commandment. Its core meaning, naturally, is a divine rule or moral law, most famously embodied in the Ten Commandments.
And the C2 usage highlights how this term transcends religious belief to describe any rigid moral rule or fundamental, non-negotiable principle in any domain.
So, while the divine rules guide moral life, we can also talk about integrity being treated as a social commandment within a community of trust.
Yes, or in an educational setting, an instructor might make punctuality a classroom commandment.
Those examples really underscore that the word commandment carries this inherent weight of absolute, non-negotiable necessity. Almost a divine origin.
It does.
Yeah.
It's stronger than a policy or a guideline. It is a fundamental imperative that, if violated, leads to profound consequences, whether they're social, ethical, or spiritual. You use it when you want to elevate a rule above question.
Finally, in this segment, we address sanctity. This is the state or quality of being holy, sacred, or morally pure and inviolable.
Sanctity is one of the most deployed terms in major moral, legal, and political debates globally. It refers to a protected, inviolable status,
Our research highlights the concept of the sanctity of life.
which is a key phrase in ethical discourse, often used to argue against euthanasia or capital punishment.
Right. And also the sanctity of marriage and the sanctity of holy places, which are destinations for pilgrims.
This word is deployed when arguing that something is so essential or pure that it must be protected from violation, disrespect, or political intrusion. The language surrounding sanctity is always serious and carries a moral imperative.
So when something is held up as possessing sanctity, it elevates that item, whether it's a life, a covenant, a tradition, or a location above everyday negotiation or utility.
And to violate something's sanctity is to commit sacrilege, which I'm sure we'll discuss later. It is a powerful concept for anchoring moral arguments.
That brings us smoothly to Section 3, where we deal with the really big picture ideas: worldviews, fate, and the ultimate.
Yes.
These are the profound philosophical frameworks that underpin vast stretches of human thought and literature.
This section introduces us to some of the core philosophical premises related to the divine and the ultimate nature of reality. We can start by contrasting ways of conceptualizing God: polytheism and pantheism.
Okay. Polytheism is familiar to most, I think. The belief in many distinct gods, with ancient Greek, Roman, and certain forms of Hinduism serving as primary examples.
Right. It structures a universe where divine power is distributed and specialized. You have gods with specific domains: the sea, the sky, war, and so on. It creates a fascinating narrative landscape of divine interaction and conflict.
But then we have pantheism, which is, well, it's fundamentally and philosophically different.
Very different. It's the belief that God and the universe are one and the same. God is everything, and everything is God.
This view instantly sees nature itself as sacred, not just created by God, but as God.
It's a concept often expressed beautifully in romantic poetry and certain forms of philosophical thought, where there is no separation between the creator and the creation.
So if you were to describe a philosopher whose worldview encompasses all reality and sees the divine essence in every rock and tree,
You would accurately use the phrase, his philosophy borders on pantheism.
and for true C2 mastery, it's worth noting a related concept, isn't it? Panentheism.
Yes, that's a subtle but important distinction. While pantheism says God is the universe, panentheism says the universe is in God, but God is also more than the universe. It's complex, but understanding this distinction shows you recognize the subtle theological differentiations often found in high-level texts.
The key takeaway for pantheism, then, is the immanence of the divine.
It is everywhere.
That added layer of nuance is exactly what we're aiming for. Next, we address the position that deals with the limits of human knowledge regarding the divine: agnosticism.
A very important one.
This is the belief that the existence of God is unknowable, or that proof just cannot be attained.
And it's crucial to understand the intellectual position here. The term was famously coined by Thomas Huxley in the 19th century to describe a scientific, non-committal stance.
So it's fundamentally different from atheism.
Fundamentally, atheism is the definitive non-belief in God. Agnosticism is about the unknowable nature of God. It reflects a suspension of definitive judgment due to insufficient evidence.
So an agnostic doesn't say there is no God, but rather I don't know, and perhaps we can't know.
That's it. And that position is often associated with intellectual honesty and open-mindedness. It reflects a person who approaches religion and ultimate questions without making claims they cannot definitively support. It represents a respected philosophical position in intellectual discourse.
Following this, we delve into a more esoteric area: theosophy, a complex word.
It is. It refers to a specific spiritual philosophy combining mystical insight, ancient wisdom, and comparative religion.
Theosophy seeks deep, hidden truth, often positing a common core truth underlying all major religions. It frequently draws heavily on Eastern mysticism, Gnosticism, and ancient texts.
And our research notes its considerable influence on modern spiritual movements, particularly in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It had an impact on fields from abstract art to psychology.
So it's an esoteric approach.
It is. It's focused on achieving profound, usually hidden knowledge through direct spiritual experience and scholarly study, rather than relying solely on formalized institutional dogma. If you encounter a character in literature seeking ancient hidden knowledge to solve a modern problem, their search often aligns with the tenets of theosophy.
Moving away from the nature of the divine, let's turn to concepts of time, fate, and ultimate destiny. Our next term, eschatology, sounds deeply academic.
It is. It's the study of the end times, the final destiny of the soul, and the ultimate future of humanity.
This is a major academic specialization within theology and philosophy.
Yes, eschatology examines prophecies, apocalypse, judgment, and redemption. And crucially, the concepts vary wildly across cultures. Our sources mention that Islamic and Christian eschatology differ significantly in their imagery and timing, often reflecting deep cultural assumptions about justice and consequence.
And this academic term filters into popular culture constantly, doesn't it?
All the time.
If you describe a work of fiction as full of eschatological imagery, you mean it is preoccupied with the collapse of the world, final judgment, or the radical transformation of existence.
It gives us a precise, high-level term for analyzing those narrative themes, especially in relation to modern concerns like climate catastrophe or AI existential risk. The study of eschatology forces us to confront fundamental human questions about purpose and finality.
It provides the framework for discussing how cultures imagine their own end.
A profound psychological indicator.
Next up, the subject of intense philosophical debate for millennia, predestination.
Predestination is a belief that God has already determined the ultimate fate of all individuals, salvation or damnation, before they are even born. This doctrine, famously associated with figures like John Calvin, has fueled enormous philosophical and theological debates throughout history.
The major tension, of course, is its direct contrast with the concept of free will. The debate asks a core question of human existence. Does an individual possess genuine agency to choose their moral path? Or is their outcome already sealed by an omniscient power?
And literature often uses this concept to explore the tension between choice and destiny, creating profound narrative conflict.
How is it used in a secular application?
Well, the term often critiques fatalism. We might use predestination in a business context to mock the idea that a company's failure was somehow sealed from the start, despite evidence of poor decision-making. It challenges the notion that any outcome is unchangeable. The word carries a heavy historical weight of determinism.
Then we have providence.
A much more hopeful concept.
This refers to divine guidance, care, and superintendence of creation.
It speaks to a belief in an overarching benevolent plan orchestrated by a higher power, even if the immediate circumstances appear chaotic or perilous. It's the assurance that things are happening for a reason, guided by a force.
This is a term frequently invoked in narrative settings or moments of unexpected fortune, right? When we say, by providence, the lost travelers found shelter just before the storm hit, we're attributing that survival not merely to luck,
but to careful, protective, divine intervention. A storyline built around a character trusting in providence is one focused on profound faith in an unseen order. It's a lovely word that encapsulates hope and order in a world often defined by chaos.
It allows writers to inject a sense of cosmic design into seemingly random events.
It does.
Our final term in this complex section has a really powerful metaphorical value: purgatory. Its core meaning, in some Christian beliefs, is a temporary state of purification or cleansing after death before one can enter heaven.
So while it offers the hope of eventual redemption, the period itself is one of suffering, delay, and suspension.
And its application in secular language is arguably even stronger and more recognizable today.
Oh, absolutely. The waiting period described as being trapped in bureaucratic purgatory is a perfect, widely understood C2 example.
It's perfect.
It perfectly captures the sense of endless, agonizing, meaningless suffering, or a difficult waiting period when you're stuck between two states, neither fully saved nor completely lost. It transforms a theological concept into a universally understood metaphor for limbo, discomfort, and necessary, difficult transition.
You could even describe a long, unpleasant commute as mourning purgatory.
You could. It highlights the word's ability to convey profound suffering, even in a lighthearted context. That's why mastering this word is so valuable. It's narrative gold.
Okay. We've moved from structure to philosophy, and now we arrive at section 4, conflict, change, and cultural resonance.
Right.
These are the dynamic words that imply movement, rejection, transformation, or recognition, the words that signal the friction points in society.
And we begin with a word that perfectly bridges the sacred and the sudden abstract insight. Epiphany.
Originally, it refers to the religious manifestation or appearance of Christ to the Magi. It's a moment of profound revelatory visibility for the divine.
But the truly crucial modern C2 meaning is the secular one. A sudden, powerful realization or a deep flash of insight, that aha moment.
That dual significance is key. We might say a scientist had an epiphany about how to solve a complex equation after weeks of struggle.
Or a character in a novel experiences a spiritual epiphany that completely changes their life direction while traveling alone. The word conveys instantaneous, transformative clarity.
Bridging the sacred and the purely abstract human experience.
That instantaneous clarity is the defining feature. It's not gradual learning. It's a sudden, illuminating manifestation of truth.
Equally dynamic is resurrection. Its dual significance rests, of course, on Jesus' rising after death, signaling the ultimate triumph over mortality.
And the C2 mastery comes from its widespread metaphorical use. It's deployed to describe a complete, glorious revitalization or renewal, often after something was considered dead, defeated, or defunct.
So you could talk about a company that was bankrupt but suddenly, under new leadership, experiences an economic resurrection.
Exactly. Or a cultural resurrection of a forgotten music tradition that suddenly becomes popular again.
The word implies not just a return, but a heroic, powerful revival from a state that was previously thought permanently lost.
It always carries incredible energy and a sense of miraculous turnaround. It gives massive weight to the concept of revitalization. It suggests that the entity, be it a city, a tradition, or a political movement, was not merely repaired, but fundamentally reborn.
Next, we have apostle. Originally, one of the 12 main disciples chosen by Jesus to spread his message.
But in modern usage, the term has been retained to mean a strong, dedicated, and evangelistic supporter of any cause.
So you could say she is an apostle of environmental reform, for example.
You could. And that usage conveys deep, almost religious dedication to the non-religious cause. They are not simply supporters or advocates.
No, they're evangelists.
They are, carrying the zeal and missionary purpose of the original apostles. The word signals not passive support, but active, fiery dedication to converting others to the idea. It emphasizes the persuasive and dedicated nature of their work.
They're disseminating a gospel.
Even if that gospel is about urban planning or new technology.
Now we turn to conflict and deviation, starting with heresy.
Heresy is a belief or opinion that fundamentally contradicts the official or established doctrine of a religious or philosophical system. Historically, as we know, heresy was taken extremely seriously.
In medieval times, questioning established church doctrine could lead to severe, even fatal punishment.
It could. The modern C2 application, again, takes this concept of fundamental ideological deviation and applies it politically, socially, or professionally.
A commentator might be accused of political heresy for questioning established party platforms.
Or a scientist might be accused of scientific heresy for challenging a dominant paradigm. It maintains the charge of deep ideological error or intellectual betrayal, even without the religious context. It's a potent accusation, signaling that a belief is unacceptable, dangerous, and fundamentally wrong in the eyes of the established power structure.
It often implies a deliberate, conscious rejection of the accepted truth.
It does.
This leads neatly to sacrilege, the act of showing disrespectful treatment or profanation towards something sacred, holy, or highly revered.
Sacrilege occurs where the concept of sanctity, which we discussed earlier, is actively violated. Burning a holy book or desecrating a consecrated altar is a clear example of religious sacrilege. It is a severe moral or religious offense.
But culturally, the weight of the word is profoundly extended.
Oh, yes.
For devoted fans, changing the ending of a beloved classic novel might be considered an act of sacrilege against the author's original vision.
Or vandalism of a national monument might be seen as cultural sacrilege. It indicates a violation of something deeply cherished, protected, and respected by a community, regardless of whether that community is spiritual, artistic, or civic.
The word conveys moral outrage.
It does. It elevates the discussion far beyond simple damage or criticism. It's an accusation of profound disrespect for something inviolable.
Another word describing destructive group identity and conflict is sectarianism.
This is extreme loyalty to a particular religious or political sect or faction, often resulting in rivalry, hatred, conflict, or violence against other groups.
The real-world impact of sectarianism it's sobering, and it continues to shape global conflicts.
It emphasizes the destructive, divisive nature of hyperloyalty to a specific faction, often magnifying minor doctrinal differences into violent social and political divisions.
And our research rightly points out that this is often exploited by political leaders who use existing fault lines in the community, be they religious, ethnic, or political, to divide and conquer, channeling loyalty into conflict.
The country suffers from profound religious sectarianism, which prevents any meaningful political compromise. That's a perfect C2 level sentence.
It's the vocabulary of tribalism taken to its most dangerous extreme.
It signals that identity has trumped shared humanity or national interest.
Moving on, we have paganism. This refers broadly to nature-based, polytheistic, or pre-Christian belief systems, especially those existing outside of major Abrahamic religions.
Paganism is often noted for its deep connection to the natural world and its celebration of seasonal festivals tied to the agricultural calendar solstices, harvests, planting times.
And culturally, it's relevant because the history of Europe shows a significant and often messy blending of Christianity and paganism in many traditions.
Yes, where holidays and folk customs often incorporate elements of both belief systems.
We see that blending of customs every year in winter solstice celebrations. Understanding paganism provides the historical context for understanding the evolution of many modern cultural rituals.
And then, a term central to modern public education and scientific debates: creationism.
This is the belief that the universe, life, and all species were created exactly as they appear today by direct divine action, often interpreting sacred texts literally.
And this concept is crucial because it often stands in direct opposition to the scientific theory of evolution, based on common descent and natural selection.
And our research notes its role in ongoing, often contentious debates in public education and policy, particularly in contexts where literal interpretation of scripture conflicts with established scientific findings.
So understanding the term means understanding a major cultural and intellectual flashpoint.
Finally, we end this dynamic section with pantheon. While we initially touched on its original meaning, a temple dedicated to all the gods, its C2 usage is almost entirely secular and metaphorical.
It functions as the ultimate level of recognition and inclusion. The pantheon becomes a metaphorical collection of the most highly respected or celebrated people in a field.
So when we say Shakespeare belongs to the pantheon of great writers,
we are using the highest term of respect available to place him among the absolute elite of his field, a group whose greatness is considered immortal and unquestionable.
Or a museum celebrating the pantheon of national heroes.
Exactly. It elevates those celebrated figures into a kind of immortal status, housed in a metaphorical temple of fame and honor. It's a word reserved for figures of lasting historical consequence.
Wow. That was a truly rigorous deep dive into what is genuinely high-level vocabulary. We've moved across continents and centuries.
We have.
Covering concepts ranging from individual prayer methods and monastic discipline to the ultimate fate of humanity and the political consequences of ideological splits. We spent time not just defining the words, but understanding their weight.
The core takeaway is absolutely clear, I think. Mastering this advanced vocabulary is about so much more than memorizing simple definitions.
It really is.
It's about acquiring the intellectual tools necessary to read philosophy, history, and theology fluently, and to write or speak about culture and the profound challenges of human meaning with real authority.
These words are the keys to deep, intelligent discourse.
They allow you to participate in debates at the highest level.
That's right.
Precisely.
Yeah.
When you use a word like heresy, canon, or purgatory accurately in a non-religious context, you signal to your audience that you grasp the historical weight, the philosophical implications, and the precise level of deviation or dedication that the word conveys.
Yes. You're not just talking about a bad rule. You're talking about doctrinal disagreement. You're not just talking about waiting. You're talking about suffering limbo, a state of necessary agonizing transition.
And that leads to a final provocative thought for you to consider.
Okay.
Reflect on just how thoroughly integrated these formally specialized theological concepts have become into our completely secular modern life. The language of faith provides the scaffolding for so much of our culture's structure. The words we initially use to define the divine, the sacred, and the ultimate destiny often become the very same words we use to define our careers, our art, our political disputes, and our moral rules. The vocabulary of faith, in many critical ways, is the enduring vocabulary of culture itself.
That is something to think about. If you found this deep dive useful for expanding your vocabulary and understanding, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.